Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being there. So my name is Thierry Bedos. I'm a French guy. Nobody's perfect, as you know. So I grew up in France. I live in France, between Paris and the south of France. I joined the company 15 months ago, in December 2024. I'm running Southern Europe. And why I've decided to join Keepit, which is a Danish company, European company, cloud data backup company. For some reason, first of all, I in the IT industry since 35 years. And I work mainly for US vendors, which is good. I work in the enterprise software, CRM, I work in cyber, I work in big data, AI, and right now in cloud data protection. And one of the reasons I decided to join Keepit, because Keepit is a European company, Danish company. It was good, it was important for me in my career to work for a European company. This is the first reason. The second one is because this is a value-added proposal from Keepit, which is about data protection. As I told you, I work in cyber, big data, and I know how data is crucial for enterprise. How this is crucial to protect the data, the big data in the company. Another reason is a challenge, because when I joined Keepit, Southern Europe was 4 or 5 people, no more. Some people in France, 0 people in Italy, and few people in Spain. So since 15 months right now, we are 30 people in Southern Europe. So we have 20 people in France, which is pretty good. Sales, pre-sales, customer success, channel. We opened Italy a few months ago, and Italy is flying. There is a huge demand in Italy. So as of now, we have 6 people in Italy. And then we're covering also Iberia, which is Spain and Portugal. Another reason is the market, because the market is huge. The trend is huge. What I'm seeing, not only in France, but also in Italy and Spain, the cloud adoption. You know, cloud adoption is everywhere. Private, public, France, Italy, Spain. SaaS application. I read recently in a mid-range company, this company is using, on average, 150 SaaS application. And SaaS application is about data. AI is flying. AI is about data, big data. This is crucial to protect all the data. First, business trend. The second one is about cyber. I spent 20 years in the cyber threat, data leakage. I was yesterday in Cannes, south of France. We had a kind of event around cloud and cyber security and a bunch of conversation about data leakage, cyber threat, ransomware. So we need to protect also the company, which is crucial. And the third pillar, the third trends I'm seeing not only in France, Italy, and Spain is the sovereignty. I know, guys, you know sovereignty. So everyone we are speaking with, you are a European company, cloud independent, not linked with the hyperscaler. This is good. We need to have some conversation, because this is one of the topics we want to address. So sovereignty and compliance. You know, the compliance, NIS2, DORA, etc. For all those reasons, I've decided to join Keepit. I'm enjoying a lot. We have 200 customers in France, right now 100 in Italy and over 100 in Spain. And to finish, for France, Bertrand, you know the French market. In France, we have a different size of customer. We have SMB, commercial enterprise. We have customer between 10 users, and we have customer using Keepit for 100,000 users. So the scale is pretty large. So in France, we have 2 flagships. We have one in the construction, 100,000 users, and the other one, which is a big bank, the bank of the farmer, Bertrand. You know the story. and I had the ability to discuss with those guys, what is the reason why you decided to choose Keepit versus the competition? And the main reason why, because you are European and you are not linked to the hyperscaler. Cloud independent, full independent. And it was one of the reasons. And we continue to develop the business. For you to know, which is very important, yeah.
It's bad that they want to not to have to be linked to the hyperscalers. but they use Salesforce, Workday, all these kind of applications that you back up.
Yeah, but you know story, Bertrand, around the Cloud Act. You know story. There is a bunch of, and there is some obsession, especially in the large account, to deal more and more with European and sovereign company. You know story, huh? But it was interesting. It was the main differentiator. Why those guys, a big bank, choose Keepit, which is very good because it's part of the value prop of Keepit. So, okay, 10 minutes, maybe less. Okay, I'm going to.
Do you have other big banks in Southern Europe?
Big banks, no. We have big banks in the pipeline, yeah, because there is a huge demand on the big banks, not only in France but also in Italy. I'm seeing trends in Italy and in Spain, 1 or 2 large banks. But as you know, big banks, it takes a bit time to evangelize and to convince those guys and to influence all the stakeholders before closing the deal. Yeah.
You need to have the first one.
Yeah. But we know, Bertrand, these banks, the large banks, the bank of the farmer, they talk each other. Yeah. They know exactly what Keepit is doing at this bank. They know exactly. So there is a huge potential for us.
It's interesting. It's Spain, France, and that way.
Yeah. So thank you guys for your attention. So keep.
Yeah, thank you.
Kim, your turn. The floor is yours.
I think I met a lot of you before, actually, so my stories might not be that interesting. But before I turn over to Jakob and Mark, who has the most interesting part here, I think I'm the only one here that are not an engineer. I come from a police background. I used to work with serious crimes against children, and that took me into the world of the internet. Worked with NATO and EU on building big compliances for those alliances, which is much under pressure and very important now that people are actually able to exchange information in a wider group and wider nations. So everything is calm around the world, I guess. I just have my 40 years medal active for service in the military, so I'm getting old, and the world is changing. Everything is calm, I guess. Last time we talked about threats from AI and threats from all kinds of aspects. And right now, sovereignty, data possession, data control, is that important? It's getting more and more important, I guess. So if we look at what goes on in the world, this is a picture I took myself. This is the Arab Emirates, I think it's Dubai, and this is Syria. It could be Spain when they had the blackout for 14 hours or something like that. They were out of power. Would we ever expect that to happen 3-4 years ago? I don't think so. We didn't think about it. When we plan for recovery and disasters, we're planning for 4 hours, 6 hours without power. And suddenly these things happen in Spain and Portugal. And it's not even an attack. It's something that happens. CrowdStrike, the incident a few years back. You heard the story before, some of you, but I was at Milan train station. I had like 20 TGV trains parked there. And there were no signs telling you when those trains were taking off or anything. Anyone who's been in Milan train station know that it's very narrow. And when you have people that are supposed to board a train, it begins to it's uncomfortable. It's not nice. And people get disturbed and they get angry and they get confused and they don't trust that people are in control. They don't trust that the people who serve the trains are in control. We had the drone sort of flying over our airports in Denmark. We also had it in Munich during the beer festival in Munich. We had a sort of an event there. When people were going home from the beer festival, there were drones over Munich airspace, so people couldn't get home. That is building on trust. The things in Spain, the things in Portugal, that was incidents. CrowdStrike was an incident that happened because of someone doing something that was not intentionally bad, but it ended bad. These drones things, they are there to build disturbance around our government, to build on trust in our society, to things that we actually trust in. In Denmark, when they first were over Kastrup airfield, which is a civilian airfield, we said, or the government said, yeah, we didn't do anything because we didn't want to harm civilian people. Then they said, if it was a military airspace, we would have done something. It would be totally different. 2 days after, they were flying over Skrydstrup, which is a big military airfield, and they didn't do anything. So people were like, who is in control? Is it the government, or is it actually the guys who are sending in the drone? Why does people do that? Why do we have tankers pulling cables and anchors over, or not cables, pulling anchors over cables in the Eastern Sea, trying to disrupt, see how dependent we are on those cables. They're trying to build instability. They're trying to build untrust to our government, to the people who provide our infrastructure. When these things happen, when things doesn't work, then we as citizens begin to lack trust in our government. And that is what the whole intention of this hybrid warfare is. We saw shortly before the invasion of Ukraine that SolarWind was occurring, that there were sort of signs that something was going on. We don't know if it was a Russian who did the SolarWind, but it's obvious that it might be them. And we saw the whole US administration maybe being penetrated very big, saw a lot of companies who could not trust their information, who could not trust their systems, because someone spent a lot of time and some money getting into a company that we all trusted and put some malicious software there that ended up in our infrastructure. Not in Keepit, but in companies' infrastructure. So what can we trust? How do we build trust to the things that we have? Well, we see a lot of things going on, and at the same time, we are putting our data more and more out there in SaaS applications around the world. I saw at the Gartner conference in Barcelona, Cisco was presenting that 93% of the CEOs thinks that within a year, we need to have AI in all companies, because otherwise we are losing money if we don't use AI. Only 7 to 9% of the CIOs knows what to do with AI. So how can we use AI in a company? CEO says, hey, go get some. Come, implement it, we need it. And on the other hand, the CEO says, I don't know what to use it for. And then we have the CISO saying, how do we control the data? There's a new AI application coming up like every week. It comes with a lot of possibilities, options that you can use, but the controls in them are very difficult to sort of see and to control. So as a CISO, it's very dangerous. As an infrastructure companies, it's very dangerous. In our government, they're thinking about laying off 50. We have an election situation, so it varies the number of people, but between 50,000 and 100,000 public employees, government employees, because of AI. How? We don't know. What can we use it for? We don't know. So being able to control your data, being able to get to a state of solidity is quite important. And talking AI also again, narrowing it down to something that you actually control as a company is really, really difficult. So what can we do? How can we help people? What are we asking for? Well, customers are going back to the sort of the old times. I come from the intelligence service. I remember when I had a suitcase with handcuffs and a mark on saying it was secret. I had one document that I could transport from Copenhagen to Brussels. That was nice and easy and safe until someone chopped my hand. That were the days where you can actually control data in a way. You know that there were one example, one copy of your document. Now people are looking at cloud. And where is the cloud? We have even Bill Gates saying, 2 years ago, I would say 365 is always up and running. Now, I would like for you to ask me again in 2 years. He said that a few months ago. That is not building trust to your customers. Talking about the hybrid warfare again, that is not hybrid warfare, but that is putting some uncertainty to something that a lot of us trust. In Europe, in governments, in Australia, everywhere, people trust 365. That is something that you rely a lot on. And suddenly the guy who actually put it up there or put it out there and sort of the person behind it, he says, I'm not really sure you can trust me right now. Ask me again. That is when you sort of say, okay, as a CEO, as a government, as anyone who controls and owns data, how do we get our control back? So we're going back to the old times where we say we need control. We need it to be close to us. We need to say, okay, it might be in the cloud somewhere, but I also want my data to be accessible if something happens. And that's what we call sovereignty. And customers need to be able to move maybe out of 365, maybe to a European cloud. There's a lot of initiatives going on. Is 100% sovereignty possible today? Yeah, it depends. I don't think within the next 5 years at least. It will take time to build the structures, to build something that actually has capacity. Microsoft are building data centers around Europe. They're trying to regain their trust through legal entities and all kind of stuff. But by the end of the day, most companies in Europe are looking at a European solution that they actually trust and that they can move to, so that they have the option at least to choose something and not just stick to the old stuff.
Can I challenge that for a second?
Yes.
I don't think European companies are looking at something that they can trust. They just don't want to have an American company.
I agree.
The Danish,
geopolitics.
right? So
Yeah.
the Danish government's trying to think about getting rid of Microsoft 365. The French government's already done that. The EU is going to go with Open Office or LibreOffice, which is a substandard solution just to piss off just to upset Microsoft. I think it's I think this is a geopolitical issue.
I cannot disagree to that. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
This is a geopolitical discussion more than an IT solution.
You know, there is some examples. For example, with TPI, when a government can kill switch a judge of an international bank, when the legal director of Microsoft in France could say before the French Senate, sorry, if I have a requisition, I have to give the data. It was a wake-up call for everyone to say we are the extraterritoriality of the American laws puts them in danger today, and that's why they don't. It's not because they hate the American people. That's because they are in danger.
They are in danger, and they also.
That's the way the American administration is doing today.
Yeah, and that is the first step, because this is now they want to what you said, the Americans, but they also want it raises the requirements to be able to move your data. Even though we have a new administration in a couple of years, it's still some trust that we just put out there that we are trying to take back. Control, that is what it's basically about. So what we are doing as a company, and this is boring, but still, because we are working globally. So we are trying to give people their control of data back, giving them the ability to migrate. That's the first step. Then we are building the structures in Europe, trusted or non-trusted. A lot of things that are being built now are very enthusiastic, built on some Linux platforms and things like that, but might not work in a larger scale, looking at least 1 year ahead. But on the long run, we are building structures that can make us kind of independent. As a company, we are building trust to our customers by saying, okay, we are following various, we are showing by compliance models, we are trying to build to show that we are actually able to handle people's data. So we have a lot. We have NIS2 Type 2 coming up, SOC 2, not NIS2 Type 2, NIS2 alone, the regulation, and SOC 2 Type 2 coming up. And we have our foundation in the ISO 27001 that we had for 3 years.
Can you go a little bit deeper into coming up? What does that mean?
For the SOC 2 Type 2 or the NIS2?
NIS2.
NIS2 is not coming up because that was chosen for, was it in October last year or something like that? So we are compliant to that.
Okay.
Yeah. What we did was, it was a good question. But the thing is, when we talk to regulators, which we do a lot.
Which country?
Sorry?
In which country you are
Then-
complaining? Because in France it's not transposed.
Yeah, but as a cloud provider, it's our headquarters interpretation of the regulation that works. So we are actually we are working closely together with the Danish regulators. I know that can be questionized, but that is how the regulation is built.
Danish flavor. Okay.
Danish flavor, yeah. But NIS2, that is in the regulation, that it is where you're headquartered, that sort of regulate how you work with the rest of the world. But are the rest of the world and Denmark defined on what they want to achieve? Yes, they know what they want to achieve, but how? That's still a question. There are some things, of course, involvement of board, all these kind of stuff that are not easy, but good to work with, especially as a CISO, because you get the attention from the board, which is both good and bad. But you get the people in there. But then talk about the levels of how you become compliant with the regulation. That's the same as GDPR. That is difficult. But we are trying our best, and I think we're doing good. We're working very closely together with our legal to make sure that we have the right approach and that we are on the right track. We founded on ISO 27001, saying we have the policy framework, all this. actually incorporate it into our business. So that's how we do it. Good. Yeah, so what we actually, the important stuff is, now we talked about geopolitical and things like that. If you really want to be migrate ready and things like that, you need to exercise the things that you don't really want to exercise. I was CISO for the tax department, the tax administration in Denmark a while ago, 2 years ago. And we had like legacy system from the 90s. You don't want to turn those off because you don't know if they're ever going to wake up again. But you have to. You have to try it because otherwise you are depending on something that you don't know, that you might critical depending on, and you don't know if you can exist if they shut down. So I think that's the good thing about all these things that are happening in the world. The good thing about NIS2, that you're actually obliged from a corporate perspective to do real exercises, and I mentioned that in London, some of you were here, to speak the truth, as it was said in the one movie one time for a British Prime Minister to the King. It's time to speak the truth. It's time to talk to your board and say, where are you? It's time for governments to look into what critical infrastructure are you depending on and how vulnerable are we? And now with fast going on. So I will finish with that. Hope is not a strategy. You need to tell the truth. You need to do real exercise. And that is what our companies around Europe, that's what our governments need to do. And also to work together on building a real threat and risk scenario for Europe and for the world. And there I will hand over to Jakob.
Thank you very much. Oh, you had your last slide.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'm not taking that. So, hello. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jakob. I'm CTO at Keepit. I've been with the company since the start, so I guess I was in some sense the first developer in the company. I don't write very much code anymore, but I've seen the changes and been part of that. So. Anything I talk about here, please just interrupt me and ask questions. So, when Keepit started, we were first to market with SaaS cloud-to-cloud data protection. So we protected Exchange Online before Exchange Online turned into what is known as 365 today. We had another first with identity protection, so Entra ID. Which is also something where we're not alone anymore, which is good to see. And now we're trying another first. So we have been doing what we're doing for a very long time now. We're sitting on a gold mine of usage data and knowledge about how are people doing backup, how are people using their backups, and what is happening around this whole resilience space in companies. So we have these data, and we would like to bring them out, share them with the world in order to get some attention, some awareness around data protection in general, and also around some things that we see that might be blind spots or areas of improvement, let's say. So, yes?
For example, when you use a kind of a SaaS solution as Salesforce, is that your identity and access management is made by Okta. It means it's a dependence.
Yeah.
But most of the users doesn't know it was Okta.
Yes.
It means that they don't back up the identity registry or whatever because they don't know it.
Yeah, that is exactly right. Yeah, and yes, and
do you have the idea or in your roadmap the idea to have a kind of a graph of dependencies to say to your customers, hey, your identity is not Salesforce, it's Okta, and you have to back it up.
Yeah. So and maybe Mark can
I'll
speak
cover
about
that.
Yeah.
On our roadmap.
Yeah. But there's yes. So we're we our CEO once said, I think our single biggest competitor is lack of awareness. And that is really, a lot of people are using backup now. A lot of people are aware of these resilience, the need for resilience. But there's still a lot out there that, a lot of companies don't. When we approach them, we're not going to have to convince them to switch from a competitor to us because they have nothing. And we're going to have to convince them that they need something. And this report is one of the many initiatives that we're trying to do in order to raise awareness.
That's still the question of shared responsibility?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Yeah, but people don't know, and Microsoft doesn't exactly advertise it. They don't hide it as much, but they don't advertise it, right? So we had, of course, as a security company, it's very, very important to us that the way that we approach this, the way that we looked into these analytical data and the data that we are able to share, that this would be something that, of course, our customers would feel completely safe with, right? So we're offering population-level insights. All analysis was done on user statistics, completely anonymized. We haven't been able to identify single customers in this, and of course we couldn't go and look into customer data sets, for example. So that means that we've looked at a number of different items or areas, and there's some places where we just where we had to limit ourselves, right? Where we said that okay, this is an interesting finding. We cannot actually see what the root cause is, but we can speculate. So you will find that also in the report. Just gonna run through. We have 4 small headlines here, and then we're gonna dive into a little bit more detail later. So on the next slides. So big finding was that 9 out of 10 large companies regularly test their ability to restore. So that is great news. So if you do not test your ability to restore, you don't have the confidence to do this at scale. And when you really need it, you're probably going to be in a stressful situation at 3 in the morning. And if you don't practice this, then you don't want to be in a stressful situation at 3 in the morning, having to recover data for 100 users. So good on that. Most recoveries we see people do are small. So these single file downloads, just one object downloaded, which is something I'm going to return to in the next slide, because that has consequences. Identity recovery, to your point, is a blind spot. So when we look at companies that regularly test the ability to do larger scale restore, we see that for every 4 companies that regularly test their productivity data, so their 365 restore, their G Suite restore, etc., only 1 company tests their identity data restore, so their Okta or their Entra ID. And that's a blind spot, right? So they don't a lot of. It's very positive that companies choose to back up their identity data. So
in fact, there is also another problem that because most of the guys which are in charge of identity are also privileged access people.
Yes.
And that means that when on a Sunday morning at 3 a.m. you don't have the right admin to have the right to recover it,
yeah.
It becomes a main problem. Yeah. And if he stayed all his holidays in Dubai for the moment, you never recover. No, and that's back to this. I mean, if you make it a routine in the company to practice restore, whether it's identity or whether it's productivity or whatever it is, if you make it a routine to do this, you will have a number of people who are used to this.
Isn't there also an issue with identity recovery? Because a lot of identity information is stored in trusted execution environments and TPMs and other storage that isn't part of your normal storage estate.
And that's a really important point, because it's sort of it's kind of we have sort of the same in software development. You can have some things in software development where you say it's really difficult to write an automatic test case for this. And that may be true, but what that means is that you're going to have some code that you're going to be able to trust less if you can't do that. So the right solution to that problem is to figure out a way to get it done anyway. And you're exactly right that these trusted environments, these privileged environments, it can be very difficult you don't want to accidentally risk overriding your identity information in your 100,000 people company, of course. But maybe you can do a restore on a sandbox tenant. Maybe that would work. So there's a lot of There's a lot of things that can be done in order to make this work. But you're exactly right that this is not, I mean, there's often when we see these blind spots, there's a lot of good reasons you can excuse them in many ways, right? There are good reasons underneath. It's not because people are stupid or evil, it's because there are good reasons. But of course the solution is to find ways to address that. Last, we had this theory that if we looked at some really high-profile global events that has happened over the last couple of years, that we would see that either they would have caused actual data loss, or they would have caused that if people are unable to access the data for a prolonged period, maybe they choose to go to their recovery solution and fetch the data from there. Either that, or that a large-scale global event would cause some awareness that would make people think twice about, do our backup actually work? No, let's do an extra test, or let's start testing whether our recovery actually works, or do we have the ability to recover? That was a theory we had. So we looked at a major solar storm in 2024. We looked at the CrowdStrike event in 2024, and we looked at a major Microsoft outage here in 25. And interestingly, we were completely wrong. So there's no indication that these events cause, on the positive side, it doesn't seem like they caused actual data loss or a long enough inability to access data that people had to recover from backup. So that's the positive takeaway. The less positive takeaway is that it also seems like it didn't cause anyone to think twice about, can we actually restore data? Should we have to? So that was another interesting finding, we think. Yes?
I'm sure that's true, because I once told a bank VP about possible losses without limit. And he said, don't tell me about the big problem.
Yeah.
Tell me about the small one. The big one, I can't sleep at night, I don't do anything. The small one,
Yes.
I can get it fixed.
Yes.
I can fix a lot of small problems one after the other.
Yes.
Which is frightening. That was last century.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, that shows up. So I have a couple of charts that are in the report, and we talk more about them in the report. But I wanted to just bring up a couple of them here. So the first one is actually, that's back to the restore point I skipped over on the previous slide. We have 4 ways of restoring data with Keepit. You have your single file download. I mean, you have this browser-based interface where you can click through your entire data set. You can see your users' OneDrives and the folders and the files. And oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, it's tiny, but I will explain. So you can browse through this in a familiar web-based interface, and you can click on a file, and when you click on a file, it will download. So if it's a 3-year-old version of a Word document, click on that, it will download immediately, and you have it. So that is an extremely convenient way of getting a hold of an older version of a single file. It's very, very convenient, and it's something that's possible with the way that we built Keepit. No waiting for tape libraries or anything like that. So very convenient. The other ways are a zip file download. If you want to download an entire OneDrive, for example, you can do that with a zip file download. We have a PST file download. If you want to download a mailbox, you can do that. And then the last method is actually the real restore method, in air quotes. It is a method where you instruct the system to put data back into the service from whence they came. So that is I would say that is what you think of more traditionally as a restore, where you recover back into the original system. It doesn't have to go through the administrator's computer.
Doing from one to the other, so from one provider to another provider.
Yes, that is a question that comes up more these days. So yes. So we decided early on that we were not a migration company. So at the time there were companies that specialized in migration from one system to the other, and we thought, it's great that they are very good at that. It would defocus us from backup if we had to be really good at that. So that was a decision we made early on. Clearly, the way that the world is moving right now, we're seeing some European cloud alternatives coming up, and we're not blind to that. And absolutely, there's going to be we're absolutely going to see companies either back up their 365 and then have a European alternative on standby, where they say, okay, maybe the European alternative is not as good as you diplomatically you use different words. so maybe it's not as good. Maybe you prefer to stay on 365 for as long as you can. But you know that if that switches off one day, you can recover back onto a European alternative. So and that is something. I mean, I'm not sure when that is going to happen, Mark. You can, but
me neither.
No, but I mean, clearly that is the way things are moving. So I don't think we will be a migration company as such, moving back and forth, but clearly migrating from one provider to another is going to be something where that's going to be a need for customers in the future, certainly.
Can you talk about the right-hand chart, please?
Yes, I will. So yes, so I will. So I'll just finish on these 4 methods because so I'll get right to it. So
Yeah, it's about the left-hand chart.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that done by administrators or by actual end users?
So there is the possibility. So if you enable this as a customer, you do have the ability to create what we call a shared link. So as if you're a backup administrator and a customer says, I lost some version of a file, I don't really remember its name, and you don't have time to try to find that file for the customer, you can create a shared link, a web link to that customer's OneDrive, for example, send that link to the customer, and then the customer can go in and access his historical versions of his files, and he can download it himself.
Okay,
so that is possible, but the number of such shared links that are created is minuscule compared to the number of downloads.
Most of the time
so it's
That's
overwhelming the administrator. Yes. So what we see here is that 90% of all restores are single file downloads, which means that the administrators are really good at downloading a file to the laptop and then sending it somehow to the end user, which is great. We're happy they like the function. But if you have to recover data for 100 users, you're not going to do that with a single file download, or you're going to work late. So it's kind of so this is again one of these two-sided findings where it's problematic that the bulk restore is not regularly practiced or is not is not very represented in this. It means that you don't have the confidence to do a large-scale restore, and that's where you really need the confidence.
The confidence, you don't have the need. Why would I do a large-scale restore if all I need is the
and that's a great point. I mean, if the only explanation is that they never have significant data loss, so they don't need it, that's great. But if it means that they don't practice it either, I mean, if they and we have some, so that's where we come back to the other graphs here, because we do see that that most companies are not practicing the large scale restore. So if you look, I mean, did they do it in 2025? Then for a surprising number of companies, the answer is no.
If you do a single file restore, isn't there a risk you lose data integrity, that your single file is no longer consistent with other files in your system, and you may not realize that?
Sure.
A couple of months have passed, and things start falling apart.
Yes. So if you have this collective of Excel sheets that cross-link to each other, and you restore a single one, yes, absolutely. that is something where we as a backup company, I mean, we have to also limit what we.
It's not just Excel.
Oh, okay. We'll take that over lunch. Yeah. Okay. So if we look at how many restores do companies in these different market segments, so the small medium businesses, the commercial, and the enterprise segment, how many restores do they do over the course of a year? The positive number here is that for enterprises, only 5% didn't do a restore in 2025. So, and behind that number is probably, I mean, you always have the long tail of a customer population, right? It could be someone who's churning. It could be someone who just, I mean, there can be all sorts of reasons why that 5% number is there. It means practically all enterprises regularly practice restore. So that's positive news, but it's also something you would expect, because enterprises have compliance departments, and they have CIOs that know that they will be on the chopping block almost literally with the NIS2 regulation if resilience is not a solved problem. So you would expect to see that from enterprises, but also clearly the SMB segment is a completely different story, as you would also expect, because those are the small businesses and they don't have the compliance departments and the CISOs and all of that. I will quickly move on to the... We're good?
Yeah.
So, when we back up data with Keepit, we are incremental only. So we download the differences to the extent possible. So we have the minimal amount of data transfer when we run a new backup. If we look at the data that we get in, and we look at files, we say, how many of the files that we download, how many of them are new files we've never seen before, and how many of them are new versions of files that you used to have, or that you had previously. We see that for files, the majority are changed files, not new files. And this makes sense, right? This is not surprising. If you think about you edit a Word document more often than you create a new one. So this makes perfect sense. But if we look at the number of bytes that we ingest, so the data, the mass of the data, the majority of the bytes appear in files we have not seen before, so in new files. And that indicates that that we have large new files coming in that are not being edited. Besides, of course, from the usual document workflow where people edit documents. And that is something where we couldn't go in and see what are the actual documents, of course. So out of respect for our customers. But our theory here is that everyone is recording the video meetings now. It makes sense that you have video recordings. You don't edit those. They are large files, and a lot of companies are doing this. So it makes sense that we have this mass of large files that are never updated coming into this mix. Now, going forward, it's going to be interesting when we do this report again next year to see how does this change. Because if the way that Gen AI is being used now, if that keeps evolving in the current direction, I would expect that we would see a lot more new documents created. I mean, as the human cost of creating a new document from scratch goes towards zero, you're going to see new documents created a lot more often, for better and for worse. Whereas editing a document, I would venture guess that is going to be less common. So this is something that will be interesting to follow in the future. And those were the findings I wanted to share with you today. We're going to share the whole report with you, of course, and we would really like your feedback and your questions. I mean, this is the first time we're doing this report. We really like to have feedback. Are there things we should have looked at? Are there things did we miss something. So whatever you can see, whatever questions you might have, please share them with us, and maybe we can make an even more interesting report next year.
How will you share the report, please? It's silly tomorrow.
Okay, so we will
Chris will make sure that you all get a copy.
Yes, so we will send you a link to it tomorrow, I hear.
Second question.
Yes.
Could any US-owned data protection provider provide 100% data sovereignty facility in Europe?
I can't see how that would work, because as a US company, you operate under US law.
The only way you could really do that, and I'm not a lawyer, is that you would set up a completely European-based company, and you would the parent company. It would not even be a parent company. It would go public, and they will sell them shares. So the American company would own the majority of shares in a European entity, but that's the only way you can really separate. Because as long as you have a parent-child relationship somewhere, then you are bound. The law applies to your company and all of its subsidiaries, right? So
your growth is capturing possibly data protection that was previously provided by US-owned data protectors. Is that true?
I believe so, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is, considering how much they own, how much is
Yes.
available to you.
Yes, yes. No, but so that is, I mean, we are, we don't like to see the world in flames, but it's clear that the current state of things is bringing awareness to some things where there has not been awareness before.
But working the other way, you've got a presence in the US.
True.
And I remember having this argument with OVH years ago when they were saying the same thing about their data centers being in America, controlled by them. It's even more so now. The latest position of the administration in the US is that it's not just about who controls the data and what the ownership of the companies, whether European or not. If they're doing something in America, America has a right to actually get access to that with a warrant. So even though you might have a data center in America, the current administration is increasing these. I had the discussion with OpenText of Canada. They've got an advantage because they're a Canadian company, so their data can't be demanded by the US government. But they're saying that increasingly the US administration is saying, it doesn't matter who owns it, if the data is physically in America, they have a right to actually get it. So it works both ways.
Yeah. But I also think, so if you're a US company and you have your data with us in a US-based data center, I mean, then there's many ways that the government can get to your data. I mean, just a warrant on your primary data. They don't even have to consider the backup data. And that goes, of course, for companies in any other country as well. I mean, you operate in the jurisdiction you operate in, and so.
One little wrinkle. Suppose I'm a Europe data center operator, and I store data backed up by, for example, Rubrik. Does the US have access to that data, since Rubrik is a US company?
And that's so, and that's an interesting question, because there's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, with hardware today, I mean, you can make sure that even if someone in theory could go in and physically take your server, they may not. That doesn't necessarily mean that they can get data out of it. So there are some safety measures that you can put in place where you can say that even if your data center provider were to exfiltrate your physical hardware out of Europe, then maybe that would not be
I think you're
useful.
saying it's not likely, but we can't say for sure.
So I think you can have very high confidence that with the right security measures, you wouldn't be able to get data out of the systems. I think you're right that there's a very low probability that someone would do the physical operation of taking actually hardware out, but that's speculation.
Rubrik talked to a European customer. The European customer said, "Well, sorry, Rubrik, we're going to send you out because you can't guarantee data sovereignty."
Yes.
Rubrik said, suppose we store your data in an OVH data center in France. Is that okay? And I think you're saying, yes, it is.
But
no, because Rubrik's an American company.
Yes, so Rubrik is an American company, so they control where your data goes. and they're governed by US law.
So it doesn't matter where the data is physically stored. If it's a US-owned
Yeah, if it, yes, yes,
that's
yes.
it.
I would say so, definitely, yes.
Okay.
If the people who control where your data goes
Yeah.
operate under the jurisdiction of some government, then that government has.
You have in the US you have the Patriot Act, which sort of obliges US companies to support the US government in getting access to data that is controlled by a US company.
Yeah.
We've had the Cloud Act.
Sorry?
The Cloud Act.
Yeah.
The Cloud Act's been around since the 70s. It's not new. It seems like new, but it's actually been in place, actually even before the 70s. It's
No,
a
the
very,
Cloud
very old Act.
Act came in about 8 years ago and was
It's a
basically,
variation on
Yes.
a very, very old act that's been around.
it came out of Microsoft suing the US government over the
But it's an updated
Hotmail
version of a
requests.
very, very old legislation.
But the problem is not the text, it's the way it's applied. It could be two centuries ago, but the problem that the new American administration applied it very strictly, and it's a problem. And there is another risk, because it was a Netherlands report some years ago. In fact, the problem is, for the moment, American government doesn't have take it, but by extension, they could say that even to use an American software could be the possibility to have requisition because you use an American software. For the moment, they do it just on infrastructure, on IaaS. But they can do, if they want, if they apply this text, by extension, to the use of an American software.
That's a really, really big stretch. Really big stretch. But
Maybe, but they can do it. And after you plead against where? In
the
Washington?
high courts, I think the high courts or even the lower courts will strike it down. But Tony, I want to just quickly come back to what you said in terms of the US wanting to take. It's not a new concept. I'm an American citizen. I will forever be paying US taxes. This concept of US reaching in is not a new concept. It's not restricted to the current administration. So I just want to note that because, as I said, so long as I remain a US citizen or I draw money from my US company, I'm subject to reporting my worldwide income. And even if I give up my US citizenship, even if the company moves to Europe, there's still a period of time in which I have to report.
Yeah.
So this concept, whether it's data or whether it's income, it's not a new concept.
No, we had the backdoor in infrastructure before anyone had known Trump to be a politician. I understand that.
Yeah, but take the administration out of it.
The US government didn't want fibre optic cable because it was harder to actually tap into it. Now they are learning how to do it, and we know about the backdoors with Snowden, etc. I'm aware of that. I'm not just laying this on Trump. I mean.
Shall we get back to the
It's more interesting than.
put together a really good deck.
So I was rounding this off anyway. I mean, yes, it's clearly it's the legal side of things. There's so many things that are complicated, and you have these disparities also in approach to law where you can say that it's very clear in the US as a non-citizen you don't have rights under the Constitution, whereas, for example, GDPR actually applies. It protects also non-EU citizens, which is an asymmetry, which is it's not the same type of law. I'm completely aware of that, but there's some asymmetry. So, of course, I guess the takeaway is that it's very difficult to know that you can hide behind legislation. I mean, going back to Kim's point, where I mean, knowing where your data is, knowing which company has the keys, knowing which government they are subject to, that's just going to be.
It actually applies until it's been taken to the courts. So we've got no idea how the courts will interpret many of these laws.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's really
Yeah.
silly to start worrying about, this means that.
Yeah.
X, Y, Z, and we're safe.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
just don't know how to cooperate.
No, no. A lot of this, I mean, the cloud, these. Yeah, a lot of these were just, I mean, put out, and then everyone hopes that they're not going to actually be tried in court, and eventually they are.
We're actually harvesting data for future processing.
Yeah.
Because if they can't read it now,
Yeah,
they
maybe.
won't be able to break the
Yes.
encryption in 10 years'
Yes. That's complicated. We're not going to solve all of that, but we do believe that we solve some. No, we do believe we solve some. Okay. Okay.
That's plenty.
That's plenty. Great. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Jakob.
Thank you.
Could Keepit offer sandbox facilities for identity recovery to its customers?
It's something we have on our roadmap, yes.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm Mark. I've met some of you before. I'm Senior Product Director at Keepit, and I look after the workload development team, so all of our workloads that we build. And I'm going to give you an overview of where we are on the specifics of some of the workloads, what we're looking at in the future. Deep dive a little bit into some of our core workloads, M365 and Entra. And I'll touch on our AI initiative, because it's illegal not to talk about AI in a presentation. So I'll touch on that as well. But to start with, just to give you an overview of where we are with our SaaS data protection right now. So as was mentioned on the slide at the start, we now have 15 workloads that we cover. As of week before last, when we introduced GitHub as the 15th. So quite a strong portfolio now. We're getting a lot of traction with these new workloads, a lot of customer interest and partner interest as well. We have Monday.com and JSM in development at the moment. They'll be coming out next month. They'll be released, so that'll be up to 17. And then we're already started development on covering ServiceNow, the ITSM part of ServiceNow, much requested by our customers. HubSpot, the CRM hub, again, another big request. And then we're looking at some other applications that have come through from our customers and our partners, some that I'd never heard of before, like Autodesk Construction Cloud. Hadn't heard of that before 3 months ago, but it's massive, and we've got a lot of customers, a lot of big customers who are using that application, and it's business critical for them. We're also looking into more IAM solutions, so we're looking at Auth0. We're also looking in early discovery into ping identity as well, and we're looking into some password management applications, so things like Bitwarden and FirstPass, etc., just to build up that suite of access management solutions. iManage is another one similar to DocuSign, used globally across law firms, another one we're looking into. And you'll see on the right-hand side here a slew of other logos the logos and that change nearly on a daily basis when we get feedback from our sales teams or our customers or our partners as to what's important.
I'm
Yes?
going to ask a question, and I'm not sure anymore, but I think you had a similar slide in London. And I'm going to ask you to be fair on how much of what you told back then is reality right now, and going further into the future, is that going to work with the other SaaS applications that you're mentioning here as well? So later in 2026, is that?
So yeah, the slide I had in November was on a timeline, I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at that point, I think we had 12 or 13, and since then we've done GitHub, and maybe Miro came out since November, since the session there. That's reality, yeah? From here left, that's what's going to happen. Those two are in development. These are going to be developed in 2026. I'm hoping that we'll do a couple more of these this year as well. It always depends. I mean, when we do the discovery about what workload do we want to build, we have to do a lot of investigation from both a business point of view and a technical point of view. So from a business point of view, is there a market? Is the data critical enough that customers will pay for a backup? Or is it just, I mean, Miro, for instance, to be honest, I mean, it's not flown off the shelves because, you know, the criticality of the data is not so important as maybe as Okta, for instance, yeah? So we look at that. What's the propensity of the customers to pay for backup? What is their market share compared to other vendors in the same sector? What are
other backup vendors. So what's our competition in that? Is it worthwhile if it's already saturated with 10 backup vendors for that particular workload? Would we do it? So all that comes into play from a business kind of due diligence, and then from a technical due diligence, we look at what's the maturity of the API? Can we use the API? Are there business or are there technical constraints? Can they support us during our development? Do they want a 15% revenue share? Do they want to have to be in the marketplace, et cetera, and all that plays in. And you'll be surprised that some of these big names here don't have an API that we can use to do incremental backups, or they even say to us, you don't have a business case, you don't have a use case here. Why would you want customers want to back up our system? We do backup. And we say, you do, like other SaaS vendors, for 30 days retention. If you want to restore, you have to put a support ticket in, and we can offer so much more. Yeah. But we get pushback from the vendors themselves saying, well, you don't have a valid use case. We're not giving you a paid account to develop with, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why these are fluid. Yeah. We've done that investigation with these services. So we know that, yes, the API is mature. Yes, they can support us. They have a developer program. They have full API documentation, et cetera. Some of these other ones we're still investigating, but I would hope that at least 2 or 3 of these make it into 26.
With the icons that are on the screen,
yep.
You mean the whole suite, right? So Microsoft 365, you mean you can back up
Exchange,
everything
OneDrive,
that's in there.
SharePoint.
Maybe that's.
But there are, I mean, within each of these, there are limitations, and on our support site for each one of these, we have like a coverage table, yeah? Okay. Because yes, we can back it up. The backup is, ignore the engineers here, that's the easy part, yeah, the backup.
No, but that's true.
Restoring is the tricky part, especially for something complicated like Okta, because you have to, and to your point, you have to restore in a certain way, and talking about the Excel files, yeah? You can't just chuck something back if it's not, chuck a user in without the group they're associated or whatever like that, yeah? And that's when we come across sometimes some API limitations. So we can back it up, and you can download it and then do something manual through scripting or whatever, but there is no restore API. So all of our coverage tables for all of these workloads say, do we back it up? Yes. Can we restore it? Yes. Can we not? No. Why? Because there's an API limitation. So
you can't test the restore, you don't have a backup.
Yeah.
We just had some talks about the stuff that's happening in Europe. How are you looking at the software that's now really been promoted in Europe, like Nextcloud and some other initiatives?
So this one here, OpenDesk, is something that we're looking into now. And that's big in the DACH market, in public institutions, that they're all going to OpenDesk instead of using Office or M365. So it's one we're looking into. Unfortunately, because it's an open source based thing, it's a bit all over the place, and their APIs aren't there at the moment to allow us to do it. And going back to, if we wanted to migrate from, we don't want to be a migration company, but if somebody wanted to move from M365 to OpenDesk, at the moment we would struggle because of the maturity of the APIs. But as more and more companies use it...
Invest yourself some time in creating better APIs.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, yes, it's used in the DACH public sector, but how big an opportunity is that for Keepit? Yeah, it's big in our DACH region, and our DACH sales force are saying you must cover OpenDesk, but we have to weigh that up against, if we got into Workday, that's global with millions of seats available to us. So it's always a trade-off from the business viability point of view as well.
I noticed that LibreOffice or OpenOffice, whichever variation.
That's another one we're looking into.
That's okay.
Yeah. I just didn't have enough room for the logo.
What Europe wants to use, so
Yeah, but that's another one. But it's a kind of the same situation as OpenDesk. It's the maturity because it's open source and everything. Yeah. So.
Do you have a representative average number for the number of developers and the amount of time it takes to onboard a new SaaS app?
For us to build the new workload,
yeah.
It totally depends on the complexity of the workload. For something like Okta, it's months for a team of 3. Because of the complexity of the restore, as I said.
No, this is no minor operation.
But Miro, very simple. Miro has very flat file structure. It's got 16 data elements. Chuck it back, yeah? Very easy. JSM, for instance, we're releasing JSM, and it's actually version 3 of our Jira workload because it's 80% of the data is shared between Jira and JSM. We're just adding service desk requests and assets to the Jira workload to cover JSM.
For Okta, you just back up the registry?
Sorry?
You just back up the registry for Okta?
We back up the registry, policies, groups, users.
Okay.
We've had 3 versions of the Okta workload, and we iterate and add more and more every time. Yeah. But at lunch, I can show you an example of the coverage table.
Okta, but they are just backing up the registry.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with the developments of those companies as well? Because Okta's changing as well, right? So you probably need to keep up with that as well.
So
how much extra work is it to actually keep up with everything that you're doing?
More and more with every workload.
Yeah, you're really taking a lot onto yourself.
Yeah, and we're actually building an AI tool at the moment which will scan these vendor API documentation and everything, so that we don't have to have somebody sitting there going, what have Atlassian changed, or what have Okta changed, or whatever. We can find out with an AI tool what's been deprecated, what's been changed, and pass that to the developers. But yeah, it's becoming a big overhead, manual overhead.
Especially if you go into the open source thing, that's
Yeah.
going to be a kind of worms you don't want to open up. I would
Which might mean we don't do it. Yeah. I mean, again, that's part of the discovery and the due diligence that we have to look at to say, do we actually want to do this or not? Because the ongoing overhead is going to be too much for us, considering there's only 2,000 companies using this and there's 150,000 seats. So.
How different is the granularity with which you can restore a SaaS application on those that are file-based versus the ones that are not file-based? Like, for example, database.
So the granularity is more or less the same for both of them, the way we've built the system. So you can navigate through, and as Jakob said earlier, you can go down to individual files within the group, within the database, or whatever, and you can pull those back. There's obviously, again, there's restrictions from the vendor sometimes that will stop us from being totally granular, but as far as possible, for some of the new workloads, the backup isn't granular at the moment. Yeah, we've decided we'll make the backup just everything. Yeah, but the restore is always very granular, or as granular as we can make it, given the API restrictions that we might have from the vendor.
So maybe a clarification on that question, because we access the data via the available API.
Yeah.
Sure.
So whether the service, how they do it, whether they're a database or they're a big file system, we never see that.
Right, but things like, I don't know, M365, lots of it is file-based.
Yes.
But things like Salesforce,
Yeah.
it's not file-based.
True.
It's
True.
just data
True.
that you are collecting through the API. So that's very different. So that's what I'm asking, how the granularity is on that restore process.
Not as much as M365, but as much as we are allowed through the API, then we'll provide it.
And then if one of those SaaS applications that are not file-based, if the SaaS application is down, how can you get access to that data? Like, for example, on Salesforce or Jira, how can you get access to that data if the service is down?
If the Jira service is down, you can go to the Keepit backup and download the data.
Okay.
And you can,
is it a readable format? Or
Yeah.
Is it a readable format that you need to access some of that?
Some of it, again, some of it is, some of it isn't. Some of it's machine readable or human readable. You might have to write scripts, but you can get access to that data. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. And you can also, within the platform, you can decide which data you want, from which date, from which snapshot. Yeah, we do 2 snapshots per day, and you can choose which one.
For example, like imagine like Salesforce is down for whatever reason, and you need to access some client data.
Yeah.
Client information, contact information.
You can do that with the Keepit platform. Yes.
Okay.
Do you have any worries about privileged access control?
Yes.
Access by people like the head of IT or the CEO. Do you do it yourself, or do you interface with other people doing privileged access controls?
We have projects ongoing at the moment to look at the service principal accounts and least privilege, because at the moment we've always asked that it had to be the service account. There was the administrative service account, and we realised that some companies are saying, well, that's not, we can't go with that, yeah, from a security point of view. So we're now bringing in least privilege support for both M365 and the Microsoft stack as well. That'll be coming out later within the next few months.
Will that be a routine part of all your products, or just for a particular one?
To start with, it'll just be for Microsoft products, but then it'll be rolled out.
Do you anticipate that the US will start instituting its own data sovereignty controls and keep you out of US geography?
No answer. I don't know, to be honest.
I got a question. It's clearly there is some historical people which are doing the backup of Salesforce or whatever. Hotel Seva or this kind of guys say something, but I don't remember the name. But clearly, today, what makes a difference and why a customer will choose Keepit compared to all these historical actors which are already here?
So one of our key differentiators is our own cloud. We run our own data centers. Yeah. We have our own cloud. We're not dependent on hyperscalers. So that is probably the key one. Yeah?
This is what I mentioned during my intro. This is why the big bank, Bertrand, choose Keepit versus the others. It was the main reason, the main differentiator.
Could it be the RTO, RPO, or whatever? There is plenty
it was the menu.
One of our
other key.
To have the essential one.
One of the other key differentiators we have with some of our competitors is we don't charge for storage.
Yeah, pricing also.
Our pricing is per seat, per user, per license. Yeah, so it's predictable. So a company knows that if they have 5,000 employees, they get charged $5 per employee. That's what they're going to pay. Yeah. If they have 5,000 employees that are creating massive files all the time and the pricing goes up and up and up, then it's not predictable. They can't forecast what their cost is going to be. So that's another thing that customers really like about Keepit is the predictable pricing based on license count, not your storage.
Given the change in media pricing, how is that going to impact your gross margins?
Yeah. and to be honest, I mean, that's our differentiator at the moment, but we might have to start looking at storage, pricing by storage, because the price of hardware is going, up and up and up every hour, So we're going to have to look at that. So maybe some of these new workloads that are data heavy, including maybe Autodesk Construction Cloud, because it has huge blueprint files that are used in the construction industry, maybe then we have to look at a mix between license and storage or whatever and combine. We have an initiative going on at the moment around pricing and packaging because it's something with some of these as well that we're going to have to look at because of the price of hardware going up all the time.
Doesn't that change your value proposition?
It might a little bit, but I think we can still focus on the seat. Okay. Yeah. But then for certain workloads, we might say it's per gigabyte or even it's per instance in Jira, it's per document for DocuSign, it could be, all kinds of things, and it's something we're looking into, because we have to adapt it, without a doubt, so something we're looking into.
And in terms of adapting your strategy, are you thinking you might ever back up also on-premise data for your clients, or on-premise applications?
We are looking at AD at the moment, because we have a lot of customers who want that hybrid Entra and AD approach. So that's an active project we have ongoing at the moment. And we'll probably do something around that within the next few months because we are getting more and more. But on the whole, I mean, our strategy is SaaS data backup. So that's where we're trying to stick. But obviously, if we listen to our customers, we listen to the partners. And if it's viable, if it's a valid business case for us, then we'll consider it.
We're looking very much into how to support governments and how to support not only regional but local. So of course we're trying to move with that market.
My question was just because hybrid cloud is becoming more and more prominent, and some services tend to not only be in public cloud but also can be deployed. Hybrid scenario.
And you even see people taking things out of cloud and repatriating. So
You have a single tier backup, don't you, at the moment? It's just for numbers. Are you thinking about adding an archive tier?
Yes. Well, yes, kind of. I mean, these, I'm not going to go, obviously not going to go through all of these because we'll be here till tomorrow, but just to show you that in some of our core workloads, as well as the workload expansion, the new stuff, which is kind of like, you know, sexy and cool, we're also heavily focused on our core land area. And this is where the majority of our customers are. This is where we have more resources actually in these areas, Microsoft, Entra, and the Keepit platform than in the new workload development, because that's the majority of our customers. And on the archive, we have this project called long-term preservation, which is something that our customers have been asking for a long time, specifically for SharePoint, because large customers have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of SharePoint sites sitting in live storage on their tenant, and they haven't been touched for years, but they're paying Microsoft every time they go over their storage costs. They're paying Microsoft more and more money, and it's not cheap. So they want to get rid of these old, or not get rid, but move these old SharePoint sites into an archive, or long-term preservation, we prefer to call it, and have it accessible, and then they can take it out of their live tenants and not have those storage costs in their live tenant, but it will be in Keepit. They can bring it back into their live tenant should they want to. But these are, you know, meetings from 3 years ago, events from years ago, or whatever, but they still want to keep the data in the SharePoint site. So what we tend to do is when we build some of these features, we have a target workload that is asking for that, if a customer workload, if you like, is asking for that right now. So in this respect, we've had lots of customers asking for SharePoint preservation. We will then maybe port it so you can use it for Salesforce, and you can use it for other workloads or whatever. But to start with, we'll aim it specifically at SharePoint for long-term preservation.
Is Keepit already feeling the hardware shortage that we have, and what do you do about it? And what does it mean for your customers?
So we are already feeling it, and we have initiatives to clean up our storage as well going on at the moment.
So there's so on the cost side and the margin side. I mean, we've had some fairly stable prices on the different components on RAM, on disk, and on servers. Now we see some of those prices taking off, but we control our stack. So we built our storage infrastructure, and it was built with this cost structure in mind. And now where the costs change, there are things we can change in our stack. So maybe we don't, I mean, maybe I don't need a terabyte hash table in RAM. Maybe I can have a Bloom filter in RAM and a terabyte hash table on SSD. We have options. So we can work with, we will work with how these costs evolve, and we have options for staying, for maintaining a good margin, so that we don't have to put complicated pricing on our customers. So we'll,
do you duplicate the data you store?
Yes.
Globally?
Well, so not across. I mean, so regions. So that's a trick. You're trying to make me say things. So our geographic regions are completely isolated. Yeah. So there's absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
If you back up to if you back up to Munich, it's in Munich.
Yes. Another question. For the moment, you're a cloud solution on your own cloud. But as it was software, could I choose another cloud, maybe an Estonian one, a German one, or an English one, or whatever, which is still a sovereign one, for example?
Sure.
Do you have the idea to develop an on-prem version? Because more and more, some OIV, very important, account, banking, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
Would I certainly prefer to have it in a private cloud and not on your own cloud?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And since we own the software stack, we have the option of, in theory, we could do all of that. Because it's our software, we can offer it in any way we choose. So yes, in theory, all of these are options. Whether they make business sense is a completely different discussion. So Kim was talking about working on supporting government setups. They are very much talking about those things, and we are talking to potential customers about what would we need to do in order for for this to be a workable solution for you, and how could we put this together so that it's also a workable solution for us? So.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I asked that.
Yes,
because,
yes. So we have had.
It's quite a sensitive.
Yes,
debate
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that the point where Bertrand is going to is regarding the control plane of the solution, right? Because you can store the data wherever you want, but if you're running your solution somewhere in the cloud, and as you said, someone just flips the switch, then what do you do?
Yes.
Right? And it's the same with any storage or data protection solution today.
Yes. But there's a lot. I mean, running an on-premise setup. I mean, who runs it then? Is it the end customer that has all of the capacity management and the software upgrades and the security patching?
The end of the control plane, as in a cloud, but it will be a private cloud, especially in the financial services or this kind. They are very regarding all this kind of solutions.
But there's a lot of business development going on in all of these areas, and there's a lot of possibility, and there's probably going to be a lot of things that are not going to make business sense. But maybe some things will. Yeah,
because both governments and large-scale enterprises are taking control back, meaning private cloud. So,
So in the interest of time, we only have 2 minutes and we've got to cover AI. So our AI approach hasn't changed since the last time we spoke, but we're adopting a very responsible approach to AI. We're not just saying, we built something in AI and shouting about it and putting it on top of the roof or whatever. And we're using AI, because we're a security company, we're using it in a very secure manner, and we're not exposing any of the data through AI. What we're giving our customers in the first phase is the ability to basically have a conversation with our APIs to dig deeper into the analytics of their data, to see how is my backup performing, how are my restores performing, what's the data size, are there any anomalies or whatever, and allowing the customer through AI and through our MCP server to question and query our APIs directly, bring the output in whatever format they want, whether that's a report, a table, a download, or whatever. So that's what we're doing at the moment.
You put everything up behind one MCP server, or did you granularly divide it up into several ones? I could imagine, especially if you're getting agents to talk to MCP servers, you would like to have it as fine-grained as possible.
Yes. At the moment, I think it's just the one.
Yes. So the customer will run it. So all of this is so we have our public APIs that we've had for years and years, and what we've done is added the option for a customer to run an MCP server if they choose so. That will expose our APIs.
So we've released the MCP server to those customers who want to be on the preview program, and they're playing around with it and running it. So that's what we have at the moment, this kind of human-driven inspection, which is available now. Then we'll move on to making it more automated, but still having the human in the loop so that we can control it and keep it secure, etc. And then eventually, quite a way out still, because we're still kind of here, So that's that kind of responsibility model, and making sure that we're not exposing any data or there's any threats there with our AI implementation.
So, question: how is it different to what people have done before with your human-driven inspection and even the human in the middle? Aren't they just creating reports?
Yeah, but they are creating reports, but at the moment we don't have a granular reporting hub.
Okay.
So it's
That's good enough.
prescribed reports.
Okay, understood.
This allows them to go, well, actually that report gives me that, but it doesn't give me this. So I'll go in and get that. So so that's basically what our MCP does at the moment. So it's that deep analysis and getting the statistics that they don't get necessarily from every report. And it's proving to be very popular in the preview program that we're running at the moment, and then it'll be becoming generally available soon.
So it's up to the client which AI client has been used.
Yes.
And that's extremely important. So we've had customers have in the contracts with us stipulate that that we promise that we will not in any way expose the data to AI, which they feel is something that's necessary to put in, because a lot of companies are slapping AI on the services, right? So that's definitely a concern with some companies, and we want to honor this and be, I mean, we want to open up for the future, but it has to be, I mean, the customer has to be in control.
We're also getting a lot of customers who are saying, we can't use AI. We've been told corporately we're not allowed to use it.
Are you growing faster than you anticipated 2 years ago?
In respect of?
This is a will you seek new funding question, really.
I'm not answering that question.